Returning in 2021 is the Stadium Championship Series. The athletes are ready to go head-to-head over numerous rounds of competition, all in pursuit of the series championship. 12 athletes are ready to do battle in the championship series, but only one can walk away a champion. We preview all the action throughout the course of the championship and preview the action going on this weekend in Houston, Texas. This is the Monster Jam Teardown. Welcome, Monster Jam fans, to another episode of the Monster Jam Teardown. I'm your host, Joshua Lee. Joining me once again is our team of analysts, Danny McGinley, Joshua Tavares, and filling in for Wayne this week is Josh Gajewski. Guys, Salt Lake City now behind us, and we're getting ready for the Stadium Championship Series to return. Just at the top of the episode, what are you guys thinking as we head into Houston and a championship series returning to Monster Jam?
A lot of the drivers that were in Salt Lake are ready to come back and wheel the beast here in Houston. You know, there's going to be a lot of competition throughout the next 3 weeks that they're going to be in Houston. So there's going to be so much action that I can't even wait to, see what they got to bring to the table. You know, all the drivers are very diverse in skills, so it's going to be very close to the points, in my opinion.
Yeah, Salt Lake definitely went really well, and I think for the 4 drivers that are on the tour starting this weekend, it was definitely a really good practice weekend for them. They had, I believe, 5 shows that weekend where they had, multiple competitions. So I think that, Salt Lake ended up being a good practice run for them going into the season.
They're heading into Houston, and the most exciting thing that for them is going to be figuring out what that track's going to be looking like. They have no idea, and they also haven't been in the truck in about a month. Well, some of them haven't been in the truck in a while, so it's going to be very exciting to see what some of these guys can do.
Now, before we preview each of the athletes as they head into the Stadium Championship Series, we do have some news to cover first, and that is the Monster Jam Hall of Fame first inductee class will be officially inducted in Orlando, Florida on Saturday, February 27th, right before halftime of the Saturday evening show. Scott Douglas, Dennis Anderson are among the first 2 to be inducted into the first ever Monster Jam Hall of Fame. Guys, we'll start with Dennis Anderson, creator of Gravedigger. He has trained Ryan, Adam, Kristen to be the athletes that they are, and now Weston Anderson coming up in the next coming years. Dennis is just a legend in every sense of the word in Monster Jam, and I think he's definitely getting what he deserves, being inducted, the first person inducted into the new Monster Jam Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Dennis is one of those guys that really, pushed monster trucks to its, full potential. Dare I say, there is the Bigfoots in monster trucks, but, Dennis really revolutionized monster trucks in the sense of freestyle. He brought what, the fans we know and love is, the best competition to Monster Jam and monster trucks, in my opinion. So, per se, Dennis is, a revolutionizer and an evolutionizer in that point.
I definitely think Dennis Anderson being the next the first inductee actually is definitely a no-brainer because, everyone knows the name. People that, don't really even follow the sport even know the name throughout motorsports and sports even. So, I think it's really cool that, Monster Jam started the Hall of Fame. Announced it last year and is beginning it this year. And Dennis Anderson is definitely a perfect first choice.
Dennis Anderson, like he said, everybody knows who Dennis is, and like Josh said, the evolution of the sport, but he's just one of them names that will always be solidified in Monster Jam as probably the greatest ever, and him being put in the Hall of Fame and them creating that is just what it needed.
And the second inductee for the first class in the Monster Jam Hall of Fame is Scott Douglas, who is the voice of Monster Jam for so many years, from Motor Madness Monster Jam. You can go all the way back to Tough Tracks back in the 80s, to Speed TV, to FS1. He even had some appearances on NBC Sports. Now, just recently, hiring and training the next crop of Monster Jam hosts and making the Monster Jam host experience into what it is today. Scott's another evolutionizer and revolutionary in monster trucks and Monster Jam, and another name that is definitely deserved of that second spot.
Oh, without a doubt. When you think of Dennis Anderson, you think of Tom Meents, but you also think of the voice of Monster Jam himself, Scott Douglas, because in my opinion, without Scott Douglas, that, rivalry in itself wouldn't have been as, like powerful in my opinion, because Scott really, talked his way, through the entire rivalry, the back and forth, the battle both of them had, that's just what made Monster Trucks back then and, even now what it is. Scott can train all these new hosts, but there will never be anybody like Scott Douglas. Scott Douglas is, Scott Douglas, and that's what I say is the best part of growing up watching Monster Trucks.
Yeah, and to piggyback off what he said, he's another name that's a part of that Mount Rushmore of people that have just changed the entire dynamic of the sport, and training new crops of hosts and whatnot is going to be amazing to see, just because he was that voice for so long and still forever will be, and it's just going to be interesting how them are going to come out when they graduate.
Yeah, I mean, Scott Douglas is definitely, like I remember, growing up, waking up every morning at 7 a.m. for an episode on Speed, and, I'd hear Scott Douglas's voice just about every morning or every day whenever I watched Monster Jam. And, it's just like among all Monster Jam fans, anyone who's watched it on TV or has been to those shows live knows his voice and knows his name. He's up there, right there with Dennis Anderson, Tom Meents, and all the legends of the sport, just because of how he followed the sport for so long, and he's been along for the ride as long as really anyone has.
You can catch the official induction into the Monster Jam Hall of Fame for Dennis Anderson and Scott Douglas on the Saturday evening Orlando event. You can get your tickets monsterjam.com/tickets. And while you're there, pick up tickets for the 7 events in Houston that are coming up over the next month. Tampa and Jacksonville were announced as well. A lot of great events on the docket in Florida and in Houston over the next month. So make sure you get your tickets if Monster Jam is coming anywhere close to you at monsterjam.com/tickets. Now we move on to the lineup for the Stadium Championship Series. And honestly, guys, this might be one of the best stadium lineups that I personally have seen in so long. I mean, where else can you see not just one Anderson, not just two, but all 3 Andersons competing against each other, and Tom Meents, and Todd LeDuc, and Bryce Kenny, and you even add in Jim Kohler, 2-time world champion. You add in Corey Rummel, one of the rising stars of the sport. We'll get to everybody individually soon, but this lineup as a whole is nothing short of amazing when you really dive into it.
Oh, without a doubt, it's a star-studded lineup. Past world champions, from top to bottom. To be honest with y'all, I'm sorry, is that with the experience each driver has is going to be very close, and I'm honestly, really happy to see that half these drivers are returning to, competition, like LeDuc, Tom, Kristen, Ryan, and Adam. They're all in different trucks, like per se. Well, damn, I just threw myself off.
Just keep going.
All right, let me regain myself. So, this lineup is stacked from top to bottom. You got Kristen, Ryan, Adam. They're all in, per se, different elements. Kristen is in stadiums. Ryan and Adam are in different trucks. So it's going to be a head game for the both of them. But coming into the season, they have the stadium mentality, so they're not going to get psyched. The Andersons are going to be the Andersons. They're crazy regardless. But the other competitors that are going to be competing with them, they have experience, like none other. So it's going to be very close in points, and I can't wait to see how everything, battles out in the end.
I think it's going to be very exciting to watch a lot of these drivers. I feel like we're definitely going to be able to get into them individually here in a moment, so I don't want to speak on them too much, but it's definitely going to be very tight-knit, and I think it's going to come down to the final few events heading into the end of the year or whenever it ends. It's going to be really close.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Josh was saying, how this lineup is probably one of the best put-together tours of maybe even all time, where there's points on the line. And, for the last couple of days, I've been thinking about the tour and the lineup. And, it's even hard to say, who could come out the winner or who could have a really good season or a bad season because, the lineup, when you look at the 2020 season, just about every driver, really every driver on there went crazy all throughout 2020 and through that season, and all had really great seasons. So I definitely think that with this lineup, we're going to get one of the best tours in the last few years.
24 total World Finals championships among this lineup. I just did the quick math while you guys were covering all the action there. And 24 World Finals championships is amazing, represented over 12 athletes, and it ranges anywhere from 12 to 2 to 5 to 1. We're going to start covering each of these athletes right now, and the first one is a two-time World Finals champion, both in freestyle 2003 and 2011. It's Jim Kohler in Avenger. He returns to Monster Jam competition after his last run in Monster Jam being in Atlanta, Georgia on Stadium Championship Series Red in 2020, and he joins his teammate Corey Rummel, who we'll get to a little bit later on. But Jim was one of those athletes who didn't compete in Arlington. He hasn't competed in Monster Jam since Atlanta, so he's coming back into the Monster Jam circuit. He has competed in a few independent events, but those are so wildly different than the Monster Jam events that he's used to competing in the big stadiums. Do you guys think Jim Kohler is going to be on his game immediately, or do you think it's going to be more of an exponential growth for Jim as he needs to get used to those stadiums again and a stadium a track?
I don't think it's really going to affect Jim that much. He has so much experience behind the wheel that I think he's just going to be like Tom Mance, how he was in Arlington, catch him pretty quick. A couple practice laps here and there in racing. I think we'll catch him on pretty quickly to get the feel for the truck and the track for sure. The track's going to change throughout the course of the weeks that they're going to be there, so it's going to be a different track every weekend. So for Jim, he should just prepare for the worst, if anything, and the best, because anything can happen in Houston and any show. So with that experience, Jim's probably going to come back and hopefully do pretty good.
With him heading into a first weekend, he's usually used to an off season, getting ready to get back in the swing of things for him. I always think he does his best events towards the beginning of the year, and he always does some crazy freestyle or some crazy move that we remember. And, same thing with last year where he ended up, I believe, winning an overall or freestyle towards the beginning of the year. I think he's going to continue that trend just like he always does.
Yeah, I was about to say what Josh just said, how a lot of people tend to forget that these last few years, Jim Kohler has always started a season off either leading the points tour. I believe in 2018 and 2020, he led the points tour after the first show because he won the overall event championship. Just about every season that he goes into these last few years, he's always started out big, and he's always ended big towards the end of the season. But I do think that with this tour and how amazing this lineup is, you have to keep that momentum throughout all these events. But, having that momentum, let's just say he wins an overall this weekend in Houston and sits in the points lead. That's definitely momentum you can take through Houston and through the Florida shows. So I definitely think Jim has a solid shot for this series.
I want to stay on Jim Kohler for a few more moments because he is the only athlete in this lineup that I can look at who has competed in a stadium championship series since its creation back in 2015. He was on the original Fox Sports 1 championship series. The next year he was on the FS1 series. Year after that he was on FS1 East. Then we began with every tour being a points tour, and he was on one from 2018 to now. So he is no stranger to these points tours, and you can remember back to 2015, back in the old points format where only winners got points. He had that rockin' 0 points on the hood, on the roof of the truck. Now he doesn't need that because last place to first gets points, and no matter where you finish, you get points as long as you compete in the competition. Do you think that experience of the points tour is going to help Jim going into this? Because there's a few athletes on this tour who haven't competed in a stadium championship series or haven't competed since last year. Do you think he has a little bit of an edge knowing how to work those points?
Without a doubt, that can be said for Tyler Duke and Tom. They've been in the Stadium Championship Series points tours for quite some time now. So, it's no stranger to them and Jim. I think at first it was kind of like a head game, kind of thing for Jim, because now that he's able to gain points even when he loses, back then he wasn't able to gain points at all. And, winning and taking points was only based on the competition ones that you get. So I think now it's kind of more like, okay, I can get points regardless of what position I place. I just want to stay consistent. But now coming into this season and then having a new teammate per se for first quarter and Corey Rummel, I think is going to be a lot different. And Team Screen is definitely going to change for first quarter, and I can't wait to see what them can do.
Piggybacking on what he said with the first quarter and being paired up with Corey, both of them guys are very good at putting the truck back together and fairly quickly and efficiently. So I feel like we're going to see Jim, with that experience, carry himself to a pretty consistent year. I think he's going to finish in the upper echelon of the points. As long as that truck can stay together, And like I said, him being paired up with Corey, I think that might be able to be that little bit of a boost.
And before we continue, sorry to jump before Danny, is like, in my opinion, since Jim and Corey do run the independent shows, normally since COVID hit, they had some more time to work on their trucks and, really relay on what problems they really had, because Jim is notorious for having some issues sometimes in his runs to where they just bite him or it's just some issue just really tears them up. So having that time to really go back and digest what the truck, problems are, I think is going to be a new change for Jim.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Jim and being on the point series since the beginning of it, I think that actually may really help him now that you say that, because, he's gone through, and when you're on a point series, especially when it first started out, because it was a whole new thing, like, there is a strategy to it, and where, and more recent now with how the points are, you don't necessarily have to win everything, but if you're consistent and getting top 5 finishes, then, I mean, you're doing great in points regardless. Even if, you have other athletes that are getting multiple wins, if you're staying consistent, that's really all you need sometimes. And I think if Jim can do that, I think he has a great shot.
We move on to Ryan Anderson in Bakugan Dragonoid, 2017 Racing World Finals champion, 2018 Freestyle World Finals champion. And Ryan is back in Bakugan. He had some issues in Arlington. He was able to walk away with some hardware, albeit, but he definitely didn't feel like that Ryan Anderson that we're used to seeing when he's behind the wheel of Son of a Digger. Now that he has 2 events under his belt in Bakugan, he's starting to feel that brand a little bit more. Do you guys think we're going to see a Ryan Anderson from 2017 quarter 1 come back? Or do you think it's going to be another sort of early quarter 1, 2018, 2019, maybe even 2020 Ryan, where he's not really at the top of his game? It just kind of seems like he can't push himself over that edge to start getting the wins that he needs.
Honestly, it's going to be a really weird first quarter for Ryan and Adam, but, we're on the topic of Ryan right now, and I think, coming from Sunday Digger to Bakugan Dragon is going to be a change regardless of what driver you are. And, Ryan is quick to, pick up on things. So if you're fortunate enough, he was, doing pretty good in Arlington, but it wasn't his best, in my opinion, to what Ryan can do. Coming into the season, he has a lot more time to really think about what he wants to do and what he has planned. He has a new crew chief, I believe, so he has to get used to a new crew chief, behind him. So Ryan is quick to pick up on things, and I can't wait to see what he can do out on the track. This weekend is going to be different for a lot of people, so let's see what he can do.
I feel like Ryan's struggled in the past on all the point series that he's been on. I don't think he's actually captured one.
2017 was his only one.
He got one? All right, yeah. So, and most of the other ones, I've seen him towards mid-pack or whatnot, because he either goes out and breaks too much too early in his freestyle and whatnot. So I think his luck's going to start to change here this year with that new body, give him a new revolution to his, I guess you could say, persona, his character, however you want to put it. And he's going to light that fire, and I think he's going to start finishing towards the top and getting those points.
Yeah, Ryan definitely has, at least for the last couple of years, has had a rough start to most of his point series tours. But I think with him being in a completely different truck with a completely different name behind him, I think that may even help him in a way, because when he's in his normal truck, we all know how Ryan is and how he goes, first hit, he's going big right off the bat. But I feel like with being in a new truck that he's not necessarily used to right away, he might hold back for the first few hits of freestyle or even in the other competitions, which I think may help him, because I think sometimes he goes too big too quick, and like everyone was saying, he'll break super early, and then we find him in 6th, 7th place in the points after 4 events, and we're like, this is not the Ryan Anderson we're used to. But I think it being in the new truck and having to get used to things may actually end up helping him.
Ryan walked away with a Great Clips Skills Challenge win and a BKT Tires Freestyle Competition win from Arlington. And we'll be watching Ryan Anderson very closely to see if he can continue that momentum coming off of Arlington and see how close he's going to be to the top of the leaderboard at the beginning of the series. We're going to move down to Cole Vennard in the Black Pearl. And I think last year, we can all agree we saw the best Cole Vennard that we have seen in a long time behind the wheel of a Monster Jam truck, from freestyle wins to racing finals appearances appearances to overall event championships, his first of his kind in a stadium. Cole Vennard was on it last year, so is his teammate Jamie Garner, who we'll get to later on, but Cole especially really came alive behind the wheel of the Black Pearl last season in 2020. Do you guys think he can continue that into this series? Because I very well think personally that he is going to be the one to beat in this series.
Without a doubt, we said at the beginning of last year that it was going to be an independent, dominant season, and it was, proved to be said for that. Jamie led out with the racing win in Anaheim, and that team had a lot of momentum carried just from Anaheim itself, and Cole kind of pushed that envelope, and he kind of picked up, characterized that in the Houston win that he had. So he has a lot of good luck in Houston in the past. Hopefully this weekend and the weeks ahead that he can carry that momentum in Houston. Honestly, I'm excited to see what Cole can do. It's a lot of stiff competition, and Cole can thrive under pressure. He's done it in the past. We'll see what he can do.
I think it's all about Cole finding a setup, and I think last year you just saw that he finally found a setup that he got comfortable with, and I feel like that's going to carry him through. Setups always going to be key in any motorsport, just so you're comfortable, and like I said, he found that, and he was able to pull out some of the most amazing moves that we've seen in the last who knows how long, whether it was a plank walk or whatever it was. I think he's going to definitely carry that momentum here into this point series.
Yeah, I mean, since Cole began driving back in, I believe it was 2016, we've always known that Cole was very good behind the wheel. He's always been. And, especially, and then, with 2020 and that his season, I believe he had 3 or 4 freestyle wins all year. And, I mean, and then any time he won, he threw in one of the crazier moves of the night or even the year. And even if he didn't win, he was still putting down crazy freestyles. And, he's very solid in racing, very solid in the two-wheel skills competition. So, with that consistency, I think he has a really good shot at this points tour, because I think this points tour is all going to be all about consistency and not necessarily winning. And, after his season last year and previous seasons, I think he has a really good shot.
He finished in second last year on Stadium Championship Series Red, only behind Todd LeDuc and 1 point ahead of Adam Anderson, who was driving Gravedigger last season. And Cole really just showed that he's there to play. He is there to win, and he won a lot of freestyle competitions, like Danny said, with the wow factor moments, whether it was on the roof, getting one tire to spin and getting it back on all 4 BKT tires, from, walking the plank back into the backflip, pulling off a save, to, you can count the consecutive backflips that he's done as well. Cole was just on it last season in freestyle. He had some breakage when it came to racing. I believe in Tampa, he missed out on the racing finals because he broke in the semifinals. And it was just that bad luck from Cole in the racing competition, and then just him not being able to pull off those skills challenge moves that Todd LeDuc was doing, that Adam Anderson was doing, that even Jim Kohler started to perfect last season, Lindsey Wink, the list goes on and on of drivers who in the skills challenge are a bit better than Cole Vennard right now. But guys, do you think that if he locks down that skills challenge, does those moves that everyone wants to see, the moonwalks, the bicycles, starts to get away from those slap wheelies a little bit, that he can be a legitimate threat for the championship, assuming all goes right in racing and he keeps up the freestyle momentum?
Oh, without a doubt. Cole is a competitive driver, regardless of what competition you put him in, whether it be arenas or stadiums. Cole is going to be at the top, in my opinion. So coming into Houston, I think it's going to be a little different for him, because he has to get used to, for one, being in the truck again since I believe October. But regardless of the situation, Cole can really catch up really quickly. Unfortunately, he has a great team backing him, Jamie, and them. They're not afraid to break the truck, and they're not afraid to put on a show. So that's fortunate for Cole and his driving style. Cole likes to go crazy, go big, and fortunately, I'm happy to say that Cole is going to be a contender.
Cole, I think something that's going to be pushing him a lot to learn those new maneuvers are, he's got 2 of the youngest kids right behind him on that team, in Zach Garner and John Zimmer Jr., who are starting to push the evolution of monster trucks. So, having 2 of those guys there who've kind of grown up on these moves and started to learn them as they've gotten into their first couple of years in monster trucks, that's competition right there with him and his own team. So I think that's going to definitely drive him to push him over the top to where he can be at number 1 almost all season long.
Yeah, I definitely think Cole has a really solid shot this season, even with the incredible lineup we have. But I definitely think, if he can keep up the like if he can do really well in the skills competition, he has a really good shot. And in freestyle and racing are very important in the points, but I think the skills competition is what ends up separating a lot of these drivers, because it in the end it comes down to who can be the most skillful in the two wheel. And I think if really any driver, any athlete that's in this lineup can perfect the skills competition, I think they have a really good shot. And I guess it goes the same way with Cole. If he can keep it up in skills, I think he has a really good shot.
We know Cole has the driving ability to pull off those moves. It's just a question of if he can in the skills challenge, and if he's lucky enough that he gets those 10s and gets those 9s at judgeszone.com to get those wins. We move on to Kristen Anderson in Gravedigger, going from an arena to a stadium. We talked about it when we previewed her for Arlington back in October. She's coming from that arena background. Now she's coming off of Salt Lake City as well, where that was her house. She dominated that. She knew that for so many years. Now she has a bigger floor, faster racing. You need to pull off the same skills moves in an arena with a larger floor, and such a larger floor and more time for Monster Jam Freestyle. Kristen is, albeit out of her element, but I think she can still succeed in this new stadium element because she has that backing of her brothers both on tour with her. She has that backing of her dad, Dennis Anderson. She has that backing of her crew. She knows that she is in Gravedigger, and she knows that she can do it. Guys, do you think that she is going to be a threat for the series championship? Because I feel like predicting a rookie on a stadium series to win the championship is a little bit brass, but I don't see it really being that bad of a pick.
No, without a doubt. Kristen is really good on picking up things really fast, and she's shown that in Arlington. Obviously she didn't really start on a hot foot at the beginning. She had to race Tom in the first race of the first round. So to be honest with you, Kristen, I think that was kind of like her head game moment where she was kind of in her own head. She kind of was like, okay, this is something new. I'm not used to it. Hopefully I can, really change and, progress from it. And she really picked up on it in the second show of Arlington. So I'm really excited to see what she can do in Houston. She's really good at what she does. Salt Lake City, she did really well. She picked up a few skills wins and a couple of other competition wins, I'm pretty sure, from that weekend. So Kristen has already some good momentum from the start of 2021. Hopefully that can carry into the stadium series. She has her brothers on tour with her. So she can learn a lot from them. And they're going to be learning a lot in their trucks that they're going to be driving. So it's going to be an all-around learning course for all the Andersons.
Kristen, she's an Anderson. She's definitely going to pick up on it 100%. She came close to beating Todd the Duke one of the shows, and she had started to have some good moments in her freestyles, and she definitely picked up on the two-wheel skills. So I think she's only going to get better as the season progresses. She might not have the hottest start. Who knows? Maybe she might. But, definitely as the season progresses, I can see her being at a contention for an overall event champion if she can, strike the right luck and, walk away with it.
One thing Kristen has above everyone else is that she's been on the Triple Threat Tour for her entire career, really. And the Triple Threat Tours and the Arena Tours have multiple show weekends. And, these stadium events have multiple shows. Every single one has at least 2 shows. Some of them have 3. And a lot of the drivers that have been on stadiums since the start of their career in these last few years aren't really used to that necessarily, especially when you get up to the 3-show weekends. So I think with that in mind, I think Kristen may have an edge over that just because she knows how to keep that consistency over multiple shows in a weekend rather than just one show on a Saturday night and then you're waiting for the next weekend. I think she has a really good advantage over some of these athletes.
We've seen that quick transition from arena to stadium before, whether it was Justin Sipes, whether it was Camden Murphy, whether it was Tyler Menninga. It's very difficult to go from an arena where you're so comfortable to a stadium. There's a lot of differences. Justin Sipes, it took him a minute to pick it up. Camden Murphy, he picked it up, I believe, the quickest out of anybody really that season or in the last couple of seasons going from an arena to a stadium. Tyler Menninga, we all thought he was going to be dominant in a stadium when he first started. He had a very slow start, almost a shockingly slow start for Tyler Menninga in a stadium. What I think separates Kristen Anderson is the fact that she has a lot of experience in an arena, and she went to Arlington. she completely changed her driving style. She didn't drive like she did in an arena. She knew she was in a stadium. She had to pick it up. And she has been very open about the pressure that she has felt being in Anderson, being the first woman to drive Gravedigger. She's harnessed that pressure really well to have an amazing opportunity in Arlington. She was in the contention for an overall event championship at one point. She had that bad luck in racing, but skills challenge and freestyle, very consistent finishes from Kristen. Guys, if she can harness that racing talent, get those racing wins that she needs, do you think she's going to be in contention for the series championship, or do you think that might be a little bit too far of a pick right now?
It's definitely not a far-fetched pick. Kristen, like I said, she's quick to pick up on things, and, I think she uses pressure as fuel, and that fuels the fire within her to go bigger and harder. She wants to not only represent Gravedigger well, but she also wants to represent herself well, not, only being the first and only Gravedigger female driver in history. She has to, carry on her, father's legacy in a sense, and not only does Adam, have to do it as well. Not this season, it's her job. So, all the eyes are on her. She wants to do well. She wants to stay at least in the top 5. And obviously she wants to win, but she also stay within the consistent part of the lineup.
Going back to Arlington, like I said, she picked on it really well. I don't think she made it past the first round either of the shows, but her first pass in the first show compared to her second pass in the second show, where she almost beat Todd LeDuc, just proves right there that I think she's definitely going to pick up on it really well, and I think she's definitely going to have a chance if she can get over the hump in racing.
Yeah, I think Josh made a really good point a minute ago where, you see Camden Murphy, Justin Sipes come on to the stadium tour for the first time, and I'm just going to use Camden Murphy as an example. He went out there the first show in Anaheim and showed everyone that he could also go just as big in stadiums. And I think, it's been kind of like a trend where you get triple threat drivers or arena drivers that move up the stadiums at some point within their career. And they surprise just about everyone out there with, grabbing freestyle wins, grabbing racing wins. And I think, Kristen has that skill, has that time on bigger floors. She's done a few speedway shows back in 2019, which are obviously not stadium shows, but they're definitely different than arena shows, and has had time at the All-Star Challenge and in Arlington. So I think that, it's really not that far-fetched to say that, she could go out there and, get a racing win this weekend or next weekend because of how other younger drivers and triple threat drivers have done the same.
Moving on to Bryce Kenny in the Great Clips Mohawk Warrior. He returns to a stadium championship series, and he was another one of those breakout stars from Arlington. We always know Bryce Kenny is going to be in the conversation when it comes to a competition win or an overall event championship. But I don't think anybody was expecting 2 events in a row, Bryce Kenny in the racing final, and in one of those, beating Tom Meents in Max D Fire, who he lost to the night before. I mean, he was right there with Tom. He won the Great Clips Skills Challenge as well on Sunday, just lost out on freestyle. That gave the overall event championship to Tom Meents and Max D Fire. But Bryce really came into Arlington, showed why he is there in Monster Jam, in a stadium, behind the wheel of the Mohawk Warrior. And guys, when he's going into this stadium series, we've seen consistency from Bryce Kenny before. Do you think we're going to see that consistent Bryce Kenny again, to where he's getting those consistent points and running in the top 6, top 5 of the points championship for the majority of the season?
That's all we can, hope for. Bryce has been, very consistent at the start of first quarter at any, tour he's been in. So to say that it's far-fetched for him to start out hot again is really not far-fetched at all. Bryce is really good at honing, his craft. He's a very skilled racer. You have to, deal with, holding a drag race car to go 300 miles per hour. He has to hold that thing straight. And, he did it in a monster truck going 100 at the Guinness Book event. So to say that it's far-fetched is not far-fetched at all. Bryce is very fast, and racing is going to be his element this year. And I think if he can really work on racing and getting far in racing, that can push his points up. He's already doing good in skills and freestyle. I just think it's a matter of where he can place in the bracket.
I think, in my personal opinion, I think Bryce has been pretty hit or miss, to be honest with you, when it comes to the way he drives. He drives the truck so hard and so well at all times that he just pushes him too far in racing, I think, sometimes, and his racing usually comes to bite him, whether he's flipping after the line after he beat Adam Anderson and the truck breaks and he misses an event like skills or something. And I feel like he's very hit or miss when it comes to that. and he'll do good one event, and the next event he might be tumbling down the track. We just don't know. But Arlington, yes, he had a very breakout event, and I'm hoping he can carry that momentum. Like I said, his racing has been a problem, and he definitely turned it around in Arlington. So one can only hope.
Yeah, I mean, if Arlington is any sign of what Bryce Kenny can do, I think some of these athletes might have to really be watching him, just because, he went out there, he got second overall just by 1 point next to Tom Meents, both shows in Arlington, and he took racing and skills on the second event on Sunday. If he's going to keep that consistency up where he's right up there in the overall points, then we have to expect him to be right up there with whoever ends up winning this tour, or even could be Bryce winning this tour. Just if he can keep those second place, third place, fourth place overall victories, then I think he is going to be up there with a lot of these athletes.
We've seen Bryce miss competitions due to breakage. We've seen him miss entire events after breakage in racing. But it seems like every bad weekend or every bad competition or every bad event that Bryce Kenny has, the next one, he is at the top of the leaderboard. He is in the contention for the overall event championship. So it's going to be interesting to see how Bryce Kenny does. Like Josh Gajewski said, he's a bit hit or miss, but when he gets that consistency down, he is going to be a threat. He has that skill to do so. And we move on to the 12-time Monster Jam World Finals champion, Tom Meents in Max D. And there's not much more to say about Tom Meents. He is the 12-time champion. He is the professor at Monster Jam University. In all senses of the word, he is legendary. And you put him in any truck on any floor of any size, he's going to be in the competition for a championship, whether it's overall event or series. Guys, do you think Tom is going to have another 2019 Tom Meents season where he just cannot get off of the top of the leaderboard in every competition? Or do you think we're going to see maybe a little bit of a 2018 Tom where he's kind of more consistently top 5, not really top of the leaderboard in every competition like he was the year prior?
Coming into 2021, it's going to be a lot of different change for him, because he's going to be competing in the same building for weeks on end. So for Tom, I think it's going to be an advantage because he's going to be used to the force size and he's going to catch on quick on how the dirt changes. Tom is always good on pretty much picking up and putting down his driving style, whether what floor he goes on. He's going to be not representing Max D Fire this season. He's going to be going back to the normal body, from what I can say for sure. So he's going back to his roots per se in the Max D body. So it's going to be for one, as a Max D fan, I would hope to say that he can show out and show down.
See, to piggyback off what you said, I think his hardest difficulty getting over anything is he's going to have to get over the fact that he's got 2 or 3 events a weekend, and it's going to be consistent all year long, and they're staying in the same area. It could play an advantage, it could play a disadvantage, but Tom is so skilled. He, like any freestyle maneuver you see, it might not look like he's going fast, but he gets some of the biggest air of the night, and I think Tom's just so effortless, and I think he definitely has a shot.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows Tom Meents is going to be up there with just about everyone, but I think these last couple of years, the point store that he's been on has not been this caliber field. This Josh said earlier, 24 world championships are represented, and he's usually dealing with maybe one Anderson or one other world champion. He's dealing with a bunch of champions, quite frankly, and I think that it's going to be a lot more difficult for him and really everyone in this field to, stay up there, stay on the leaderboard. But, I mean, we all know how Tom Meents is and how, he can take a bad situation and turn it into an overall victory. So I think, if Tom can be his typical self, I think he has as good as a shot as anyone in the field.
We move on to Todd LeDuc in Monster Energy, who in the last couple of seasons has been incredibly dominant no matter what tour he is on, no matter what truck he is in. I mean, from 2014's Freestyle Championship to 2015's Racing Championship, he was dominant in 2016, 2017, 2018 he gets on this another championship series. This is first full season behind the wheel of Monster Energy, and he's in the conversation for the championship all the way up to the final competition of the final event. 2019 championship series win, 2020 stadium championship series win. To say Todd LeDuc is out of the conversation is a bit of a long shot because he is just so consistent. Guys, do you think Todd LeDuc is going to be on top of that leaderboard right off the bat, or do you think it's going to be a bit of a gradual hike for Todd LeDuc at the beginning of the season?
When you think of Monster Jam in the new age, you think of Todd LeDuc, Tom Menz, Ryan Anderson, the guys who are in the upper echelon of pushing the trucks to its absolute limits. Todd is, a showman, like we said in, shows past, that, he's really out there to show that, he's there to win and that he's not afraid to go big. Todd, regardless of what truck you put him in, he's going to be consistent. Todd is there to put on a show for the fans. And Todd, in my opinion, he's had some, bad luck, and he started off, sluggish in some events. Todd has had moments where he doesn't really, show out the best. That could just be nerves or just, problems. I don't know what, to say it is from, his perspective. But if Todd can really come into this season with, a good level head, like he had a lot of good luck in Salt Lake. He won, I think, 4 racing competitions there. So we'll see what he can do.
I think Todd LeDuc is going to be the one right underneath Tom Menz all season long. I think that's going to be the rivalry of the year, in my opinion. But Todd, if he's on his game, I think he's definitely one of the 3 that are unbeatable on this tour. If he can get any sort of momentum to swing his way, he's going to keep it the entire year. So to say Todd doesn't have a shot, I would say that is very much an understatement. So Todd definitely top 2 in my opinion right now.
Yeah, I mean, when you look back on Todd's career, especially in recent years, there's not many events that come to mind where you think like, yeah, Todd LeDuc did not do that well. He was at the bottom of the points lead or bottom of the overall lead. Just about every event, it seems like he's just right up there in the competition. He's right up there, top 5, top 3, regardless of, the track conditions, the track itself, the lineup. He's always up there. And I think consistency is key for this tour. And, I think that with how consistent Todd really is, and as probably one of the most consistent drivers in the sport right now, that I think Todd has one of the best shots of the entire field, even with how, he can go out, do very well in racing, do the same thing in skills, and most likely get top 5 in freestyle, and that can get you an overall championship right there. So I think Todd has a really good shot.
I'm realizing while we're going through this list that we have pretty much said everybody has a shot at this series championship. And I think that's what Monster Jam boils down to, is that if you have the skills, you harness those skills, you can be a champion. And this is maybe the closest stadium championship series fight that we're going to see in the history of points tours in Monster Jam. Moving on to Adam Anderson in Megalodon, another familiar face with a new brand, as his brother Ryan Anderson is as well in Bakugan Dragonoid. And guys, Adam, he didn't really come alive in Megalodon early on. He was flipping, and I believe he said something about every event I've driven Megalodon, I have flipped over at least once. And I believe he broke that event 4 in Salt Lake City when he walked away with an overall event championship. Then he goes back in event 5 that same evening, and he gets another overall event championship. The only driver to get 2 overall event championships in Salt Lake City. Everybody else only had 1. LeDuc, Kristen Anderson, and Bryce Kenny. Moving into Adam Anderson and Megalodon, now that he has those overall event championships under his belt, he's getting familiar with the chassis, getting familiar with the body, with the brand. Do you think we're going to see the Adam Anderson that we're used to seeing on these points tours, who is so dominant? You go back to 2016, he was almost unbeatable. 2017, he was in the talks for the championship until the last event. Same thing with 2018 as well. 2019, he gets another Stadium Championship Series win. And in 2020, he was only a handful of points back in 3rd place. Do you think we're going to see the familiar Adam Anderson on a points tour? Or do you think we're going to see a new Adam Anderson behind the wheel of Megalodon?
I kind of want to see a new Adam Anderson. I want to see, in the sense of an old Adam Anderson from the Taz days, where he would just go out there and just go berserk and do his thing. Make Adam Anderson Adam Anderson. Back in 2008, he was there to show that he's an Anderson, but he's there to prove the point that he's not to be messed with. So coming in Megalodon and a new identity per se for Adam, it was definitely a change for him. He had to get used to a lot of new things, and I think coming into Salt Lake City was really what helped him, dial in the truck a little bit more, because in a close quarters arena, that's kind of like the best way to really, show forth that your truck is at its, tip top, best shape. And, he did roll over a couple of times that weekend, but what other driver doesn't roll over and have bad days? Adam is quick to pick up on things, and, coming into Houston is going to be a bigger floor for him, and he's, very comfortable on bigger floors, so we can see what he can do.
Adam Anderson, I think, is another driver that can be definitely a little more hit or miss, just like his brother, where he goes too big too soon or breaks something weird or just has some gremlins that keep attacking him all season. I would love to see a new form of Adam in Houston, but his luck as of the past hasn't been all there. So if he can put something together, he's got a chance. But I don't know if he's got safer chance like a Tom or a Todd at this point, in my opinion.
I think with Adam, is he was saying in Arlington that he doesn't have the pressure of driving Gravedigger every weekend. And he said, I believe he said with driving Megalodon that he can try new things or try different things that he wouldn't try in Gravedigger, because he always wants to go out there and make sure he, fills the time and, gives the Gravedigger fans what they paid to see. And I think, we might really see a new Adam Anderson in Megalodon, because he doesn't have to think about, making sure he gets far in racing, making sure he does well in skills, and the same in freestyle. Obviously he's going to do very well in all those competitions. He wants to do well in all those competitions. But I think we might see, a different style of Adam Anderson, sort of. And I think that, that might, help him going through this tour.
I want to go back to what Gajewski said, because I thought it was a little bit interesting as just a general topic of discussion before we move on to our next athlete, Jamie Garner, and Overboard. It's the fact that the luck needs to be there. We can talk about skill all day. We can talk about, what they can do behind the wheel in their head to get those wins that they need, because we know every athlete has the ability to win any competition. They just need to put their head down, focus, and harness that skill to do that. But the luck needs to fall. The cards need to fall into place. And for a lot of athletes who have that skill, the cards don't fall right. And they end up going down the order, ends up even hurting them, knocking them out of championship hopes just by pure bad luck. I mean, the drivers can do all they can behind the wheel. We know they're all eligible, they're all capable of getting a series championship behind the wheel, but it's that luck falling into place. How important is that luck?
The luck is very important. That can be said for any driver. They are, like you said, very skilled to win any competition that, you put against them. With Adam this season, I feel like Adam is going to, in my opinion, put down the pressure point of having the Gravedigger name behind him, and he could just come out and have fun. In my opinion, the one thing that's been striking Adam's luck in past seasons, he's been very consistent, but you can tell that some of his runs were kind of lackluster, or he'll just break early on some unfortunate stuff. I think he was just having that too much pressure aspect on him. And I think he just didn't have fun, really just coming into each weekend with the pressure of, I have to stay at top. And with coming into Megalodon, he could just go out there and be like, okay, if I break early, I really wouldn't have that much of a problem. I just have to, change this and change that, or, whatever happened in that situation. He could just go out there and, relax and have fun and drive the truck the way Adam drives the truck.
I think the luck plays an immense part in this entire thing, like I've said before. So, I think our problem here is that they've shoved so many amazing drivers from everywhere in Monster Jam, and they put them here right in front of us. So I think luck is going to be heavily involved this year.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think luck is involved in every points tour, really just every season, every event. But, with this lineup, it's like you really, going into Houston this weekend, like I have no idea who to think is going to win, racing or freestyle or whatever. And, I think with everyone being so skilled at every competition, like we've been saying for these last, 8 or 9 driver athletes that we've talked about here is like, this person has a good shot, this person has a good shot. We've been saying everyone has such a great shot at winning this that, you're going to need luck because the skill's there for everyone. So, it's a matter of taking that skill and then, hoping for good luck at, a few events. And then at that point, you have to keep up with the skill and then you'll end up on top.
I think we can all agree that one of the best parts about Monster Jam is that everybody is so equal behind the wheel of those Monster Jam trucks that sometimes it really just comes down to luck being the difference between first, second, third place. You can go all the way down the order. Just this person couldn't pull off this move because a part broke. This person just couldn't fit all the stuff they wanted to do within the 2-minute clock in freestyle. Sometimes it just comes down to the way the cards fall, the luck that they have that night in that event that can lead to the difference between being a series champion and coming home in second. We move on to Jamie Garner in Overboard, who, like his teammate Cole Vennard, breakout season in 2020. He picked up his first stadium freestyle win on Stadium Championship Series Red back in Tampa. That awesome consecutive backflip that we saw from Jamie Garner. He was so excited to pull that move off, and I was equally as excited in the stands to see him pull that off as well. And Jamie is so good, especially in freestyle. He's came alive in freestyle, but he's also come alive in racing as of late. He had a racing win in Anaheim in the first event in the Stadium Championship Series Red last season. He's becoming sort of a jack of all trades where he can be consistent in racing, get that win. He can be consistent in the skills challenge, get that win. He can be consistent in freestyle, get that win. What are your thoughts on Jamie Garner as he heads into the Stadium Championship Series? Do you think he's going to be consistent as well and grab a couple of wins here and there and maybe be a talk for the championship?
Without a doubt, the odds can fall for any driver. We said this before that any driver on this tour and lineup has, the opportunity and, the skill to win the points championship series in the end. Jamie, in my opinion, he has like the best competition in Monster Jam right now on his tour, and I think that's going to play a little bit of a mind game on him. He has to kind of go back and be like, I got nothing but world champs to deal with, kind of in a sense here. It's a stacked lineup, so he has to, really go back and be like, okay, I'm going to change a little things. Maybe look at how the drivers really take to the course this weekend, because I don't know how this, course is going to pan out for what racing style they're going to do. So each driver is going to be different on each style of racing that they have. So one driver might be faster, one might be slower. So that's where the trades come into play there. So Jamie has greater odds in either competition he's in. He just got to get out of his own head and just drive the truck the way Jamie does.
Yeah, I'm gonna toss this to a different point. I think the backing of Jamie Garner's team, his entire team, just the other drivers on his team are pushing him so much as of late, them being younger and them being into whether it's his son and John playing them video games or, and then them translating into real life. And Jamie wants to be a part of that. So I think he's pushing himself as far as he can, and he's trying to push himself not too far off the edge, but over the edge enough to where, he's still able to say he can compete with his son and, be better than him for as long as he can. Because, as a father, you want your son to do well, but, that competition right there is always going to be driving you.
Yeah, I mean, with Jamie, it's definitely going to be a tough year for really everyone on the tour. But I think one thing with Jamie that, we've seen over the last few years, that he's a very quick learner. He's improved these last couple years. And, being on a tour with drivers, all three Andersons, Tom Meents, Todd LeDuc, and, his teammate Cole Vennard, I think, he's going to start picking up different skills as, the tour goes on. And, there are so many events that at least have been announced so far that, he has a chance to try different moves or, improve himself in different competitions. And I think that, him being in a lineup as great as this, that he has a good opportunity to pick up more skills and improve on the already great season he had in 2020.
We move on to Corey Rummel in Rage, and I think this is the 5th time I've said this tonight, but breakout season in 2020 for Corey Rummel. I mean, he was so consistent when it came to the racing competition. I don't think we really expected it from Corey. He was co-technician of the year in 2019. He got the high jump award, or the Extreme Air award in 2019 as well. And we've really known Corey as somebody who is dominant in freestyle, as a lot of those Team Scream drivers in history have been, including the leader, Jim Kohler. But he came alive when it came to that figure eight racing. And Corey really took to that figure eight racing. And I've talked to him in a pit party in Miami, like, what's your strategy when it comes to racing? He just said he pins the throttle to the floor, turns the wheel, drifts around the corner, and he was making it to the racing final multiple times. And he was a regular in the semifinals too. I mean, Corey has figured out Monster Energy, Monster Jam racing. And if he can continue that, I think he's going to be a solid threat for multiple overall event championships. But the question is, do you think he can string enough of those together, continue his good luck in the skills challenge? He pulled off that great save in Arlington, the first event we had there. In the skills challenge, he pulled off an amazing save. He's been consistent his entire career in Monster Jam Freestyle. Do you think he can put it all together to have that championship run? He finished 4th on Stadium Championship Series Green, I just remembered.
Yeah, Corey's the jack of all trades, in my opinion, on Team Scream. Team Scream is well known and well renowned, in the monster truck industry for having, the strongest trucks and, the, craziest air and, wow factor. But Corey, he stands out from the rest on Team Scream. He's a racer. He can do skills. He can freestyle like the rest. But, Corey, he's the last couple seasons, he's been really, working on his racing game, and it showed. He's taking out competitors like, Ryan Anderson, Morgan Kane, Neil Elliott, the list goes on. Corey can, stand with the rest. And, I think the name Rage has kind of, struck his luck a little bit in Monster Jam, representing what he drives in Rage, kind of, in my opinion, per se, kind of, I don't know how to really explain it realistically. You could tell from, the past season that he's ran Rage that it hasn't had the best of luck. So when he ever runs, the felled bodies per se, like Megalodon or Pirate's Curse, his luck has been really pretty good in first quarter. But whenever the Rage body gets on for some reason, things don't go Corey's way. So hopefully in 2021, things will go his way, and Rage, can, stay in the top 5.
Corey is going to be my dark horse here. I think he's going to be one of the guys that we're not going to expect to be there at the end of the season for whatever reason. But Corey is like Cole in a sense, where they're both two crew guys that work their way up to driver. And I think that some of the best drivers that we get are the crew guys turned drivers, and those two definitely show it. And I think Corey, once he gets his little bit of luck with his skills down, because he's already starting to come in his own into racing, and he's obviously been amazing in freestyle. So I think once he gets that skills down, he's towards the top. And like I said, he's my dark horse, so I think he's going to be towards the top 3.
Yeah, I think with Corey, I think this season could go really either way for him. Like Josh was saying, like he's had some bad luck in Rage before when he's behind Rage and not the in Megalodon or Pirate's Curse. But if he can put it all together like he did last season, I think he's one of those drivers where like by the end of the season we're going to see him and suddenly he's going to be in the top 3 when we're getting to the final weekend. And we're talking about Corey Rummel possibly taking this win because of how much he's improved over these last couple of seasons. And I think that really if there's everyone's kind of expecting like certain drivers to really be the ones in competition, but I think if there's anyone in this lineup that isn't necessarily in the competition as like that most people think of, I think Corey Rummel's the guy to suddenly come out of nowhere and end up being top 3 in the tour, maybe even getting this win with how much he's improved and everything.
We move on to the reigning Monster Jam World Finals Freestyle Champion, Lindsey Reed and Scooby-Doo. And Josh was talking about his dark horse being Corey Rummel. Lindsey's my dark horse because I think she checks all 3 boxes of a stadium competition. She is technically undefeated at Monster Jam World Finals in Orlando. She won the Double Down Showdown. She only got knocked out of the bracket in round 2 because she broke her truck. She couldn't come back. She beat John Zimmer in that race. Then she is from the Arena Series. She has been on the Arena Championship Series since her career started. She's only had a handful of stadium events in the States and then a good handful of international events as well in big stadiums overseas. But she has that skills challenge down in the arena. She knows how to pull off those moves. And then she's the reigning Monster Jam World Finals freestyle champion. And she put on some really great freestyles back in 2017 when we saw her debut Wonder Woman in events for Monster Jam. We've seen her put on great freestyle shows overseas when she's on International and Scooby-Doo. She, of course, won the World Finals freestyle competition, the biggest freestyle competition of the year. She checks those 3 boxes of those competitions. I think Lindsay Reed, it's a bit harsh to just throw her out saying in her first Stadium Championship Series she won't be a threat. I think she has a great threat to possibly punch her way into the Series Championship, at least the lead at one point, maybe even the championship closer to the end.
I'm not gonna lie. I think if anybody should be nervous, it should be the other drivers because they haven't really seen what Lindsay can do in a stadium setting. She won the World Finals Freestyle Championship and then got put into arenas. And in that arena championship year, she stood to the top against Randy Brown. They were flip flopping at the top of the leaderboard for a couple of weeks, and unfortunately, I don't think she won that tour.
Randy got it.
Yeah, Randy did get it. That's what I thought. But she was still contending for the win. She was very close, and unfortunately, COVID hit. And, the season got cut short, so we really weren't able to see what Lindsay was able to do. And maybe she was able to punch her ticket back to World Finals if that were to be a thing of the past. But coming into 2021, everyone's going to be, looking out for what Lindsay can do. I'm going to be looking out for sure, and I hope that she has really great luck. And coming into Saturday, I hope that she's able to pick up at least one win.
Lindsay Reed, like he said, hasn't been able to show much of her skills. She's been able to show a lot of it, but not very much when it comes to the stadium setting. And I say this, like I said, Corey, I think she is going to be a dark horse. I don't think she's going to be more or less towards the top, but I think she's definitely going to be poking and scratching at these wins, getting really, really close here and there, maybe even snagging one. And like he said, I think she's definitely going to be one that these drivers have to watch out for because, like he said, there's never really been much, film to watch on Lindsay Reed to be prepared for her in a stadium setting. So she's definitely got a lot to prove, and I think she's going to be able to do it.
I think a lot of people that, follow the sport forget that she's done a lot of the international shows, which just about all of them are stadium shows. And, I can think of multiple moments. I want to say Frankfurt, Germany, she pulled off a great save, and she's had other crazy moments across Europe and all of the countries over there, and and she is the reigning freestyle champion. And I think people kind of forget that she has that stadium skill already, and because not a lot of people think of the international shows. And even looking at her season in 2020, I was able to see her in Albany, all 3 shows, and she was absolutely killing it out there. She was going out there and getting some of the biggest air that we've seen all weekend and for that show. And I think, and she kept that going throughout her entire tour, and in my opinion had the best season on that tour. So I think that, she's one of these athletes coming into this tour where, she could come out of nowhere and take a freestyle win, which could, bring her up in points even more. So I, really think that she has a good shot at this.
Final athlete we're going to talk about in depth is Bari Musawir in Zombie, who competed on the first Stadium Championship Series back in 2015. Since then has been on multiple triple threat tours. Then in Arlington, he got back into a stadium, and he was insanely good in Monster Energy Monster Jam Racing. I mean, I think surprisingly good, even though he made it to the finals in Monster Jam World Finals 20 racing against Jimmy Cretin, and he only lost because he red lit. And so I think a lot of people forget Bari also has that international experience with Lindsay. He knows how to do stadium racing as shown at World Finals, as shown at Arlington. He knows those skills challenge moves. He was on tour with Tyler Menninga for 2 years. He watched him pull off those moves. Bari knows how to do those skills challenge moves in an arena and in a stadium. It just comes down to that freestyle. And I think Bari needed a little bit more of an adjustment when it came to freestyle. He was still kind of treating it as an arena freestyle, where it's a lot more technical in an arena. In a stadium, it's a lot more go bigger, go home, pull off those wow factors. If Bari can harness that skill in freestyle, get those wow moments, get those freestyle wins, do you think he's going to be a threat returning to the Stadium Championship Series for the first time in 6 years?
Barry is without a doubt a threat. When people think of racing, they really don't think of Barry. They always think of like Todd, Tom, and Ryan. Obviously the mainstay names in racing. They don't really think of Barry, and Barry would just come out of nowhere and take the whole thing, even if he hate, if that, would be a thing. Barry has picked up quite a few racing wins in the past, whether it be in the States or international shows that he competes in. Barry's always been very, competitive and very consistent in the competitions that he's in. I just think he needs to pick it up a little bit in freestyle. His freestyle runs, they're very, consistent and good. I just don't think they're, over the top like, all the other runs that he needs to, push the envelope a little more if he wants to, take home the championship at the end.
Barr's been driving for a lot longer than people think. I think he's pushing an anniversary here soon with how long he's been driving, and not a lot of people know that. And he's definitely coming to his own in the last 2 or 3 years, and I think the marinas actually have helped him being on those tours with those drivers, doing all those other extra competitions, being able to practice a donut and stuff like that, and then showing it off in the stadium. And I think now, since it's been 6 years since he's been on a stadium tour, I think this is going to be his moment to shine. Again, it's a little bit of luck, but if it can strike, Barry is one of the drivers that it would look amazing on.
Yeah, I think with, just overall this tour, I think one competition to really look at is the skills competition. And I think that with Barry having all those years on the Triple Threat Tour, I think he has a really good advantage in that because he's used to doing the moonwalks, 3, 4, 5 times a weekend for 9, 10 weeks during a season. And it's the same thing with Kirsten Anderson doing, the skills competition so often, and same with donuts. And I think that, if he can keep up with everyone in the skills competition, he already has racing down. Everyone knows that he's one of the great racers that we have right now. If he can keep up with everyone in skills and freestyle, I think Barry is going to be up there with, the big names that we've been talking about. And, and Barry really, he almost won the World Finals racing finals at last World Finals. And, and people don't really think about that. People think about Jimmy Cretin winning. But I think that, people really got to watch out for Barry.
Now it's time to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, and give our predictions. We're going to start with Houston, and I want to specifically just cover Houston as a whole. Who do we think is going to be dominant, and where do you think they're going to be dominant? We'll start with the two Joshes, then we'll head over to Danny, then I'll give my thoughts. But, guys, who do you think is going to be dominant in Houston? Who do you think is going to get those wins, be in contention for the overall event championship?
It's hard to really say without, looking at the track, because in my opinion, it all boils down to the track style that these drivers are really, dealt with. Because, like I said before, that a lot of these drivers, they can be really consistent on one track and be really not consistent on the other. It really just boils down to what style they're really used to and how they can really adjust to it very quickly. Last year, we saw an older style Chicago racing coming back, and some of the drivers picked on it quick, like Tom and Charlie and Camden, of course. They are always been fast, and Chicago style is very different from St. Louis style and Jersey style. So, any of these styles of racing is going to be hard for all these drivers, but it's just a matter of who can pick up the best.
I want to say some of my key points heading into Houston is I think in racing, I think heading in right out the box, people to watch are Corey Rummel and Barry Musauer and even Bryce Kenny. Those 3 guys right there going to be at the top of the game. They're 2-wheel skills. I can see Kristen Anderson picking off something here at the beginning. And freestyle, it all comes down to who does the craziest thing, to be honest with you. And I feel like if luck would have it, I feel like an independent of a nature could snag one of these, because you don't really expect them to do them wild maneuvers all the time, because it is their own stuff. They are paying for that equipment. They are the ones that have to work on it. So I feel like one of them guys are definitely just show off to start the season, let them know, hey, we're not here to play this year. And with the collection of independent drivers we do have on this tour, I think freestyle is definitely where they're going to shine this year.
Yeah, I think with Houston, I think, everyone's going to have their moment. I think just about everyone in this lineup is going to have, a moment that we all talk about right after the weekend. But I think the one driver overall to really watch, in my opinion, I think is Adam Anderson. I have a feeling that, he's going to kick things off like Adam usually does and, grab a couple wins, grab an overall or 2. And I think, he's going to, like we were saying, we think that he's going to be this, new Adam with his new truck here in Megalodon instead of Gravedigger. And I think that, he's going to be one of the drivers this entire season that everyone's going to be kind of going at. But I think definitely in Houston, I think Adam's going to kick it off.
I have my mic muted. I'm going to edit that up. Those are some great predictions for the first event in Houston, for the first group of events in Houston, the first weekend of the 3-week stint that we'll have in Houston. And I think in the racing competition, it's really going to come down to Bryce Kenny and Tom Meents again, because they're the two that really dominated Arlington. Bryce dominated the Monster Energy racing competition in Salt Lake City. Maybe not as much as Todd LeDuc, but it's that difference of arena racing. I think Todd LeDuc is going to have a chance in racing, but I think he's going to get knocked out in the semifinals by either Tom or Bryce. And then we move on to the skills challenge. Kristen Anderson's a good pick. I'm honestly going with a little bit of a dark horse for my, domination and Great Clip skills challenge pick. I think it's going to be Jim Kohler. I think Jim's going to pull off those wow factors early on. He's going to, do those walking slap wheelies, those sky wheelies off the back of the step up. He's even been experimenting with the moonwalks. I think he's going to bring those out. Some crazy sidewall saves. I just feel that energy from Jim Kohler that we saw at the beginning of last year. And then when it comes down to freestyle, honestly, Ryan Anderson and Bakugan Dragonoid, I think, is going to be the dominating factor in freestyle. But with these 12 athletes, it's kind of hard to really choose one for each competition or choose multiple for each competition. You almost just want to say all of them, because each of them have a legit chance of winning each competition. And now we move on to our first round of series champion predictions. And we're going to update these predictions as the series moves on. But before the series even starts, give us that early prediction, just who you're feeling based on stats, based on just the overall vibes you're getting off of the athlete. Who do you think is going to win the series championship? And a reminder for the viewers, this is a very, very early prediction. And we're going to look back at this at the end of the season, right before the last group of events, and see just how wrong or right we might be. But starting with the Joshes, who do you guys think is going to be the early threat for the series championship?
Man, it's going to be very hard. I couldn't even pick a prediction for Houston, even for the first, select events to, win per se and overall. It's kind of hard because, the lineup's so stacked as it is. It's very early on to really say who's going to have an advantage, because we don't, like I said, it's really a driver's course depending on the layout of the track. So we got to really see how that, pans in effect. Without the knowledge of what the track's going to look like, I'm going to usually stick to the top, usual echelon of drivers like Todd, Tom, and Ryan. From my knowledge of experience and how they've done in past first quarters, in my opinion, the one that's probably going to be the most dominant right now is probably going to be Todd, for the sheer fact of, if he can really play the cards correctly to his, way, that if he doesn't really do good in racing, he can bounce back in skills and freestyle. And I think that's what some of these drivers have to realize, that if they don't do good in racing, they shouldn't get discouraged, because for one, the season's long. They should really focus on each competition that's ahead of them. Like Jim Kohler, for instance, he's running his 2 trucks only. I think Rage and Avenger are going to be running first quarter, so they can really focus on their trucks only and, put the best time into their trucks to really push it to the limits. We want to see Corey and Jim in the top 5 always. Them guys are always consistent and probably the hardest working guys out there in the industry, and it shows. So I'm going to have to go with Todd LeDuc for sure for now.
Like he said, it all comes down to what that track's going to look like. Everybody can say this at the beginning of any season. You can go with your favorites, but nothing comes down until you see what it is first show, first time looking at the track to really gauge where people are going to be at. But I got 3 names that come to mind in no particular order that I think that are going to be there at the end of the season. That's Tom Meents, Todd LeDuc, and Corey Rummel. I think Corey, being that dark horse, if he can pull that luck together with that skills challenge, and like I said, he's shown it in racing and freestyle that he knows what he's doing. I think those are the 3 to watch this year.
Yeah, without knowing much about, the track and, how all these shows are going to go, my prediction here, I think it's really going to end up coming down to Adam Anderson and Todd LeDuc in the end. I just have a good feeling with Adam. He's usually very consistent with all the point tours. But I think in the end, if, again, without any knowledge of really anything of what the season's going to bring, I think Todd LeDuc's going to end up on top. Because, I think he, on every track, when you really think back to it, in 2018, they were running the Chicago style, and he was dominating there. Last year on, they had Jersey style, I believe, and he was dominating there. So I think, he knows how to run on every type of track that we've seen, at least. And, I think with how consistent he is, maybe not necessarily winning a lot, but getting in those top 5, top 3 finishes, I think is what's going to put him over everyone else.
Some great predictions from our analysts here on the Monster Jam Teardown. I personally am going to go with Tom Mentz and Max D. Fire. He's consistent in Monster Energy racing. He knows how to dominate the skills challenge with his moonwalks. Maybe if he can even explore some bicycles, explore some more slap wheelies in Max D, he might be able to catapult himself even further up in the points from the Great Clip Skills Challenge. And then he just knows how to wow that crowd in Monster Jam Freestyle. That's going to do it for this episode of the Monster Jam Teardown. Make sure to tune in next week where we recap all the action from Houston weekend 1 of 3, and join us every week as we cover all the action from the Stadium Championship Series. For Danny McGinley, Joshua Tavares, Josh Gajewski, I am Joshua Lee. Thank you for tuning in, and this is Monster Jam.